An amazing encounter. A single mom exposes how her son's drawing transformed a CEO's life forever. Claire watched the sunlight fade as she scrubbed down tables at the diner, the scent of greasy fries flooding her senses. Each swipe was a reminder of her exhausting day. Working 2 jobs left her no time to dream. With Ethan, her 6-year-old, waiting for her at home, she shouldered the weight of expectations, her own and those of the world around her. Every night, nestled at their flickering kitchen table, his small hands moved like magic as he drew vibrant worlds far beyond her weary reality. But tonight felt different. "Mom, look," he exclaimed, brandishing a crayon-scratched paper depicting a towering mountain splashed with colors she had long forgotten. Hope surged within her. Tantalizing yet fleeting, what if this was the opportunity she yearned for? A voice in her head shouted, she's just a waitress, just a cleaner at night, grappling with insecurities. She fought the rising swell of nausea that twisted her stomach. What if Ethan's dream, built on a child's innocence, shattered when exposed to the harsh glare of reality? This dilemma gnawed at her as she laid in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while rain tapped rhythmically on the window. She could submit the drawing to a local art competition. But what if it didn't win? What would that mean for Ethan? That the world out there wasn't interested in their colorful dreams? Her muscles tensed, breathing grew erratic as she found herself wishing for more than just survival. Why was it so hard to find hope, to balance dreams with despair? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She could almost see herself pulling that old paintbrush, gliding it across a canvas instead of wiping down sticky tables. Yet, the fear of rejection loomed like the clouds now blanketing the sky, dark and foreboding. What if she failed Ethan? The pressure of being his everything weighed her down, suffocating her resolve. Clenching her fists, she fought back overwhelming feelings, fear, desperation echoing in her mind and demanding recognition. Right then was a thunderclap stirring a maelstrom of doubt. Across town, David stared out of his glass-paneled office. The city sprawled beneath him, vast yet isolating. The immense responsibility of making numbers grow hung over him, pressing down with fatal clarity. He had everything: money, status, yet felt trapped, an automaton in a world of corporate validation. It was at the gallery, in a brief moment of escape, that he stumbled over Ethan's drawing. The colors leapt vividly, filling him with emotions long buried. Could he rediscover himself through the childish eyes, through Clara's evident struggle? These thoughts tangled in his mind, amplifying the urgency within him to seek out the creator of such purity. But what would he find? Would he face the weight of societal expectations, or worse, the judgment of a single mom? The inner turmoil roared as he stepped towards this new endeavor, battling the looming shadows of his past, the man he had become versus the one he wished he still was. As events began to unfurl between Claire and David, it left the air thick with an electric impossibility. The two stood worlds apart, their intersecting paths full of unknowns. Would they crumble under the unseen weight of their respective lives? Or, somehow, could one's dream awaken the other's hope? Only the murmur of fleeting life buzzed behind them, a reminder that somewhere, their stories, filled with dread and aspiration, were poised to collide in a way neither could yet foresee. The ringing of the diner's bell marked the arrival of customers, shattering Claire's fog of doubts as she resumed her duties. The clatter of silverware and the hum of conversation faded into the background while her mind replayed the image of Ethan's vibrant drawing. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and fear, pondering how a simple piece of paper could symbolize everything she wished for and everything that terrified her. Each smile from the children in the diner felt like a reminder of the innocence that she couldn't afford to lose. Later that night, after tucking Ethan into bed, Claire returned to the kitchen table, still awash in the yellow hues of the lamp overhead. Sewing together a makeshift plan, she pulled out a laptop that had sat neglected for far too long, its screen dim from disuse. What if she researched local art competitions, venues willing to feature work from aspiring artists? She gulped down a wave of trepidation, sucking in her breath at the thought of her own inexperience. But if she didn't act, the vibrant colors on the paper would fade into memory, just like her own dreams of a brighter future. As the cursor blinked, urging her forward, she hesitated. What if her submission was rejected? What if she faced the very same apathy that she had seen in the world in her darkest moments? The doubts clawed at her resolve, but the thought of Ethan's face when he spoke of his dreams ignited a spark. She needed to channel her fear into action. In that instant, Claire decided. She would submit Ethan's drawing, not just as a mother hoping for recognition, but as a woman reclaiming her own ambition. Waking up the following morning, determination coursed through her veins. She smoothed out the crinkled drawing and snapped a photo with her phone, feeling a surge of resolve as she drafted an accompanying letter. The words flowed, describing Ethan's imagination, the joy in each stroke, and the hope her son represented for their future. Claire's fingers trembled as she pressed send, surrendering her hopes, for better or worse, to the universe. Across town, David sat at his sleek office desk, reviewing sales figures, yet his heart wasn't in it. The hustle-bustle of corporate life felt increasingly alien to him. He couldn't shake the image of Ethan's drawing from his mind. Every sip of coffee tasted stale compared to the vibrancy that the boy's art had ignited. Inspiration lingered like an unopened gift, tantalizing and just out of reach. Not wanting to waste the potential of this newfound drive, he began to research ways to initiate an event showcasing local artists, beginning with Ethan's work. A stirring beneath his skin awakened the man he had forgotten, not driven solely by fiscal accomplishments, but by genuine passions that once held meaning. This was more than just support. It was a chance to foster creativity and connection, something he had starved himself of. As their paths aligned, Claire felt the weight of her decision pressing down, each tick of the clock amplifying her lingering anxiety. Meanwhile, David daydreamed about how to infuse life into his corporate world, lifting it from the depths of monotony. The vibrant colors of a crayon-scratched paper echoed in both their minds, hinting that life was more than mere numbers and waitressing shifts. But before they could confront this new reality, the fragile balance of their lives threatened to unravel amid unspoken doubts and unseen consequences. Claire stood at the brink, aware she had made a choice. But was it the right one? In the shadows, competition loomed, and the time was ticking down. As David formulated plans to meet with Claire, he was unaware of the storm that lay ahead. The pressure of pushing through uncharted waters could either drive them closer or tear them apart. Little did they know, the first encounter would set off a sequence of events that neither one had anticipated. Would they have the courage to confront not only each other, but themselves? The following days were a whirlwind for Claire. The weight of her submission loomed over her like a shadow, igniting both flames of ambition and whispers of doubt. While she continued her shifts at the diner, every customer served felt like another reminder of the ordinary life she both cherished and resented. The daily routine was comforting, yes, but in her heart, she craved something more. She wanted to embrace existence beyond the grease-stained diner and overflowing coffee cups. Ethan's enthusiasm remained infectious. Every time he spoke about his drawing, he brought Claire back to the moment she clicked send. The innocence of his dreams sparkled with the potential she had all but buried. But what if he were disappointed by her failures? Would she be strong enough for both of them? Weeks blurred into a haze until she received an email and acceptance. Her heart raced as she read the words, each line resonating like a drumbeat in her chest. This was just the beginning, she thought. Accepting recognition also meant stepping out in front of the world and exposing herself to judgment. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Through the initial haze of excitement, doubt resurfaced like a dark cloud. How would she balance this newfound opportunity with her responsibilities? Could she truly handle the spotlight without feeling swallowed by it? Her fingers shook as she crafted a response, formalizing her acceptance, but still unsure of what this leap would truly mean. David, on the other hand, had jumped into action. His plans became more defined, sketching out an agenda with a zest he hadn't felt in years. Each meeting he scheduled felt like a small victory, an acknowledgement that he, too, was capable of more than the confines of his corporate existence. He envisioned the venue adorned with colors and art, Ethan's art. It all felt so tangible, yet the deeper implications of his actions set him on edge. Was he merely using the talents of a child to escape his own sterile reality? The line between support and exploitation narrowed, and doubt crept in like smoke. Each time a name from his past career was discussed, he wondered if he'd merely be exchanging one kind of apathy for another. What was he inviting into his life, and what would it mean for Ethan and Claire? Claire tried to focus on the practical aspects of her acceptance, but each moment spent crafting an approach to her new venture stoked an internal fire of fear and restlessness. She had to confront why she wanted this opportunity. Was it for herself, Ethan, or the fleeting moment of recognition? It all came to a head when she found herself staring into the eyes of an art instructor at the local community center, setting up her very first workshop. These were people who had surrendered their fear long ago, individuals who had taken the leap she was still processing. As she clutched her notes, a part of her craved their validation. The raw creativity igniting in that room mirrored her own. She felt herself opening up. The instructor's words echoed in her mind, urging her to unpack the fears that stifled her spirit. It was also in that moment that she decided she would no longer let the possibility of failure dictate her actions. Taking this step for herself and for Ethan meant a renewed sense of responsibility, a commitment to rise, not just for their future, but also to honor the vibrant dreams of the boy who inspired it all. But just as her resolve began to solidify, an unexpected message from David shattered her focus. The details of their first collaboration, the event that would shake both their worlds. There it was, laid out in front of them, concrete yet fraught with uncertainty. Would this joint venture lead to a connection or to chaos? Claire felt the pressure mount, realizing that both she and David were teetering on the edge of mutual revelation. The day loomed ahead, filled with inevitable decisions that could shift their trajectories forever. In her heart, Claire questioned whether this meeting would illuminate the path to healing or lay bare the fractures they both feared to confront. No longer could she play the role of a passive observer in her own life. The moment of truth was approaching. So many intertwined lives hinged on what unfolded next. Would they step into the light together, or would the shadows consume them? The morning of the collaboration dawned with a promise of unease that hung thick in the air. Claire stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection, searching for the resolute version of herself that she hoped existed beneath the surface. The weight of her decision pressed down like a heavy anchor as she reapplied her lipstick, the scarlet hue marking a silent declaration of intent to embrace this new chapter. She needed to show up, not just for David but for Ethan. The belief that their dreams hung in the balance galvanized her determination, and that belief morphed into a flickering flame of energy. Yet doubt still clung to her like the humidity outside, suffocating and relentless. What if she faltered? What if she failed not only herself but also Ethan, the little artist who inspired her to take this leap into the unknown? Arriving at the venue, a venue that shimmered with possibilities and yet felt intimidatingly vast, Claire was struck by how surreal this moment was. It was adorned with vibrant colors, mirrors reflecting anxious faces, and easels creating an almost chaotic sense of freedom. She was stepping into a space that promised exploration but also confronted the truths she had long ignored about her own limitations. David was already there, pacing the room. He radiated nervous energy, bouncing from one idea to another, a stark contrast to Claire's internal turmoil. As they exchanged a nervous greeting, Claire noted the slight tremor in his hands. He, too, felt the weight of the impending encounter. They were collaborators now, but it felt more like a trial, each of them measuring the other's resolve. The workshop opened, and participants trickled in with a mix of eagerness and trepidation. Claire's heart raced as she faced the small group of aspiring artists, all searching for that spark she yearned to ignite within them. She opened her mouth to speak, The words caught in her throat as anxiety clawed at her. In that moment, the room fell silent as all eyes turned to her, waiting, expecting. It felt as if a spotlight had landed directly on her, an exposure she both feared and craved. But as she began to speak, something remarkable happened. The fear that had initially sought to paralyze her transformed into energy, an electric pulse that surged through her veins. She spoke of her challenges, her journey, and Ethan's unwavering spirit. With each word, she could feel herself shedding the layers of self-doubt. Their dreams, their passions, they all intertwine. Across the room, she caught David's eye. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight, yet his expression had softened. In that moment, Claire understood that they were both on a significant journey, not just professionally but as individuals grappling with their identities. They would sink or float together, yet even more potent was the realization that their individual development hinged on their willingness to be vulnerable. Then an unexpected hand shot up. A young woman with bright eyes voiced a question that struck right at her core, the crux of why she had been afraid all along. How do we deal with the fear of failing? The question hung in the air, and Claire recognized its significance. This was not merely about art. It was about every choice they made and every risk they took. In that moment of confrontation, Claire stared directly at the young woman, feeling the weight of her own insecurities. "Failure is part of the journey," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's in our responses to it that we find our strength." Her heart pounded, realization dawning that this was a lesson she, too, needed to embrace. As the workshop progressed, something shifted within her. She embraced the messiness of creativity, allowing herself and others to make mistakes, laugh, and discover all at once. Each interaction became a stepping stone toward her growth, pulling her deeper into a world where her past didn't dictate her future. But just as a rhythm started to emerge, an unexpected message from David abruptly interrupted her reverie, a text, announcing a change in their professional plans, one that could potentially derail their newfound momentum together. Claire's breath caught in her throat, her heart racing as she pondered the implications this shift would bring. Would this alteration spark further growth, or would it lead them in circles of frustration once more? As she stood before the attendees, now collectively basking in a newfound sense of creativity, Claire realized that their journey was far from over. Each change, each revelation only layered on another level of complexity. What lay ahead promised even more contradictions, but this time she was fortified by her commitment to rise beyond her fears. Now, she needed to confront the next stage of their partnership and figure out what sacrifices she was willing to make. Would she bend to David's new vision, or redefine what their collaboration looked like? In that pivotal moment, she understood. Life would always throw unexpected turns. The question remained, could she navigate them without losing herself in the process? The workshop had left Claire invigorated, yet the chilling text from David replayed in her mind like a haunting echo. As she stood amidst a flurry of vibrant canvases and exuberant laughter, her heart felt heavy with an uncertainty that threatened to suffocate her once more. David had proposed a pivot, a shift in direction that left her breathless and unsure of her footing. What would it mean to abandon the structure they had established together? To follow a vision that was not wholly her own? It clawed at her confidence, stirring up the remnants of her self-doubt. She needed to speak with David, to articulate her fears. But how could she confront him without sounding uncooperative or worse, fearful? In the quiet of the break room, Claire found a corner to breathe. The aroma of coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the sounds of muted chatter beyond the door. She sipped her drink, attempting to calm the tempest inside. The idea of David's sudden pivot pushed at the boundaries of her trust in his leadership. She thought of Ethan, his fervor for creativity unencumbered by doubt, a stark contrast to her own rattled psyche. Claire needed to draw strength from that innocence, to let it guide her. With her heart pounding, she approached David, who stood gazing at a particularly chaotic masterpiece one of the participants had created. He seemed entranced, but she knew that no painting could hold a candle to the significance of their partnership. "David," she began, her voice surprisingly steady, Can we talk about the changes you suggested? He turned, surprise etched across his features. The flicker of vulnerability in his eyes mirrored her own, and for a moment, the tension between them hung heavy. Sure, Claire. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us, he said, crossing his arms defensively. A chance to reach a broader audience. But what about the connection we built? She pressed, grounding herself in the conviction she fostered during the workshop. We have something meaningful happening here, between us and with these aspiring artists. I fear that this shift might take us away from that. David frowned, the lines on his forehead deepening. I'm not discounting what we've done. I just think we can evolve. Claire's heart raced. This was more than a disagreement. It felt like a fracture in their collaboration's foundation. What's the vision if it has no heart? If it overlooks what we've created together? His response was cautious, yet it revealed layers of his own fears. I just thought there was room to grow, to connect with a wider audience. Isn't that what we all want? A bigger audience doesn't mean anything if we're not true to ourselves in the process, Claire argued, her voice gaining strength. She could feel the burgeoning clarity she had discovered in the workshop. She refused to be swept into uncertainty without asserting her voice. Sometimes, our value lies in the intimate connections we forge, not in the size of our reach. David's expression softened, the walls around him crumbling just slightly. He contemplated her words, and for the first time, Claire caught a glimpse of his own vulnerabilities surfacing. His previous determination began to falter, swirling into doubt as he weighed their established rapport against the promise of something larger. You're right, he admitted, voice low. I don't want to fall behind. And neither do I, Claire replied, feeling the shift of power, the emergence of mutual vulnerability. But let us not forget the strength we've built here. Let us strategize a way to grow without sacrificing who we are. They stood there, both introspective and vulnerable, as the buzz of the workshop faded into the background. Claire felt a glimmer of hope, a sliver of belief that perhaps this confrontation could reshape their collaboration, forging a stronger connection and deeper understanding. Yet unease still lingered like an ominous shadow. If David's hesitation was rooted in his own insecurities, could it lead to rifts not easily repaired? Or could this uncertainty spark an innovative evolution that tamed her fears? As they began discussing how to refocus the vision, Claire realized that the answers they sought were intertwined with their willingness to confront their personal conflicts. And therein lay her next challenge. What would she uncover if she dared to dig deeper into those cracks? Not just with David but within herself. The future of their partnership danced tantalizingly before her, yet it teetered on a precipice, one fragile misunderstanding away from collapse. The conversation with David lingered in Claire's mind long after they had settled into a tentative agreement. Their exchange had sparked something deep within her, a yearning for tangible evolution. The clarity she'd discovered in expressing her apprehensions drew her to a crossroads. This was not merely about David's ambition but about her own role and potential in their partnership. She couldn't help but wonder, could she harness this energy to fuel her own growth? Back at home, Claire sat at her kitchen table. Her son Ethan's art supplies sprawled across the surface like vibrant confetti. It struck her then Ethan approached his creativity without the shackles of doubt that so often bounded her own. Watching him sketch passionately, she realized she had once thrived under similar impulses, lost in the joy of creation. Where had that girl disappeared? Uneasiness pulled at her, but instead of surrendering to it, she reached for a fresh canvas that had been collecting dust in the corner. As she squeezed the paint tubes, vivid colors coalesced into a swirling dance on the surface. Each stroke was a defiant declaration, a rebellion against her self-imposed confines. Lost in the moment, Claire found herself pushing boundaries she hadn't dared to cross before, experimenting with colors and shapes that spoke to the chaos within. The transformation awakened a sense of empowerment she hadn't anticipated. The act of creation became a catalyst for self-reflection. She began to think about the stories she wanted to tell through her art, the connections she longed to forge with those who would gaze upon her work. This realization flickered like a candle in the dark corners of her mind, perhaps acting on her instincts could counterbalance David's demands. After all, it was those same instincts that had once driven them together. Yet with that spark came a wave of concern. Would she risk too much by diving deeper into her identity as an artist? Would embracing her creativity ultimately jeopardize their collaboration? Claire leaned back in her chair, taking a moment to watch Ethan diligently capturing his dreams on paper. She could see the thrill in his eyes, a reflection of authenticity she yearned to reclaim. That night, Claire decided to reach out to David again. They had agreed upon some initial steps to refocus their vision, yet she felt compelled to explore the possibility of integrating more of her own artistic journey into their collaborative framework. With growing determination, she crafted a message, detailing her ideas on balancing personal expression with their ambitious plans. She sent it with an anxious heart. This was uncharted territory, a test of her evolving confidence. Days later, as Claire prepped for their next meeting, she pondered the dialogue she hoped to initiate. They needed a balanced approach, one that combined David's enthusiasm for expansion with her need for authenticity. But would David be receptive? Or would he retreat into the familiar confines of his original proposal, particularly now that fear of falling behind loomed larger than before? When the meeting commenced, Claire felt the weight of anticipation fill the room. She wanted to enter with a mixture of assertiveness and vulnerability, the dual qualities that could bring about the transformation she desired. As David joined her, the tension of both expectation and uncertainty wrapped around them like a tight embrace. "Claire," David greeted, his eyes revealing a combination of eagerness and apprehension. "I've been thinking about our last discussion." The moment hung, brimming with potential. Claire's heart raced, sensing the threshold they stood upon. Would they uncover a shared vision that acknowledged both their fears and dreams? Or would the fractures deepen, pushing her further from the connection she longed to maintain? Her breath hitched. With each passing second, the conversation teetered on a knife edge, ready to plunge her deeper into this exploration of their partnership. How she navigated this could redefine not just their collaboration but also the very essence of who she had become. Would she emerge from this with newfound clarity, or was she about to face an entirely different reality? David's words hung in the air, a tangible weight pressing on Claire's chest. She could see the gears turning in his mind, the way he struggled to merge his vision with her call for authenticity. Yet, beneath the tension, Claire felt a flicker of optimism. This was her moment to test the boundaries she had recently discovered. "David," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I've been thinking about how we can blend our visions. I know you're driven by growth, and that's essential, but I need my voice to resonate through our work too." He leaned back, his expression shifting from apprehension to contemplation. "Tell me what you're thinking. I want to create pieces that not only push us forward commercially but also communicate something deeper. I remember the way I felt when I first painted with passion, how it connected me to others," Claire explained, her urgency igniting her words. "It brought me purpose. I think we can incorporate that into our project." David's brows knitted together, and Claire could see the respectful intrigue behind his initial skepticism. "Are you suggesting we make it more personal? Incorporate your artistic journey alongside the corporate goals?" "Yes," she pressed, excitement bubbling within her. "Imagine a campaign that doesn't just showcase our product but tells a story, one that reflects both of our narratives. It can engage people on a more emotional level." He nodded slowly, weighing her words. The moment was fragile, and Claire felt herself holding her breath, fearing that any misstep could send their exchange spiraling back into conflict. "It's a compelling idea, Claire," David replied, his tone contemplative. "But do you think we can balance the artistic with the commercial enough to satisfy the investors? We risk a lot by stepping away from the safe route." Claire noticed the slight tremor of doubt in his voice, and for a moment, it mirrored her own. Could they truly navigate this uncharted territory? That's the challenge, isn't it? Growth typically demands some level of risk. But maybe the stakes are worth it. If we fail, we'll learn something vital. If we succeed, we redefine our paths. She watched as he contemplated the balance of their visions, and for the first time, doubt seemed to give way to a spark of inspiration. Maybe we can do a pilot project. Test the waters with a few pieces that blend our strengths, he proposed, a new light in his eyes. We can measure the response, see if our audience connects with it. Claire felt a rush of exhilaration. They were crafting an opportunity together. That's perfect, David. It's both a statement and a strategy. I can start working on this right away. It'll also help me immerse myself back into my art. David nodded, and Claire could see walls coming down, revealing a collaborative spirit that had been hidden beneath the surface. And I'll make sure our investors are on board with the creative direction. Let us present it as a bold vision rather than a risk. The shared laughter between them filled the room with a warmth that had once seemed elusive. They exchanged ideas, sketching outlines of what their collaboration could become, dangerously intricate yet beautifully intertwined. As they moved forward, Claire's confidence blossomed. Every suggestion she made took on a life of its own, weaving her artistic impulses with his corporate insights. For the first time, she felt her identity as an artist reaffirmed through their partnership. Yet, as they wrapped up their meeting, a familiar unease crept back in. Did their union rely too heavily on the hope of shared vision? What if David receded into the shadows of his ambition once more? The lingering question ignited something primal within her. Was this collaboration strengthening her sense of self or merely masking deeper insecurities? The moment of triumph shimmered, but tension remained, like the first stroke of paint on a pristine canvas. As she looked toward the future, a realization struck her. Their journey was only just beginning. The very foundation of her growth depended on this precarious balance, and the intricacies of their partnership would reveal hidden truths about herself. With this new vision in mind, she returned home that evening, seeking inspiration from Ethan once more. He would understand what it meant to create without abandon. What new colors awaited her revelation? How far would she push her boundaries now that she had opened this particular door? Ethan was still busy with his sketches when she entered, and as Claire observed him, a single thought crystallized. The risks she chose in her art mirrored the risks she had to embrace in life. But in pursuit of these truths, was she prepared to confront the fears that dogged her steps? The lines of their collaboration were drawn, but they remained fragile, teetering on the edge of possibility. Would she find the clarity she sought, or would self-doubt threaten to unravel everything she dared to build? The following days were a whirlwind of energy and inspiration for Claire. She dedicated herself to the pilot project, consumed by the desire to merge her artistry with David's vision. Every stroke of her brush felt like a step toward reclaiming her identity. Yet a lurking doubt whispered through her thoughts. Was she prepared for the vulnerability that creating something deeply personal entailed? In the studio, the clutter surrounded her, sketches piled high, paint tubes scattered like the chaos within her mind. Each canvas beckoned her, challenging her to confront her fears. She had always drawn strength from her art, but now it served as both a sanctuary and a battleground. The weight of expectation, her own, the project's, and David's, pressed heavily on her shoulders. As she paced the small room, the silence screamed for direction. Her mobile chimed, breaking the tension, and a message from David popped up. Excited to see the first concepts. How's it going? She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. How much of her struggles was she willing to reveal? She wanted to tell him about the exhilarating rush of creating, but feared the shadows of uncertainty lurking in the background. What if he rejected her vision? She responded, keeping it bright, glossing over her doubts. It's coming together. Can't wait to show you. Yet, as she put her phone down, her breath caught in her throat. Was this truly the authenticity she aimed for? Creating art that stirred emotions, yet sanitizing her communication? She felt a gnawing need to be entirely seen, to show the rawness of her journey. Later, seated at the table across from Ethan, she shared her internal struggles, her voice wavering as she unfolded her fears. His eyes sparkled with understanding as he listened. Remember, Claire, authenticity lies in the messiness. You have to be willing to embrace the imperfections of your journey. That S where true connection happens. His words struck deep. Wasn't he that what she was trying to convey through her art? The essence of being human, the mess of feelings during creation, the clash of ambition and self-doubt. She resolved then to reflect that duality in her work, to weave vulnerability into the fabric of her artistic expression. Let us experiment, she suggested, her excitement reigniting. I want to explore this concept of rawness. I'll use different mediums, maybe even some unconventional materials to express my insecurities and triumphs. Ethan nodded, the energy shifting as he eagerly dived into the suggestion, sketching potential ideas. Their synergy mirrored the creative collaboration she yearned for with David, solidifying her determination to bring truth into her work. As days turned into a flickering series of finishes and failed attempts, Claire slowly uncovered hidden layers within herself. Each canvas displayed a kaleidoscope of emotions, bright bursts of color, contrasted by dark patches representing her fears. With each completed piece, she discovered resilience buried beneath self-doubt. Despite the satisfaction of her creative breakthroughs, the looming presentation to David sent shivers of anxiety coursing through her. Would he appreciate the rawness, or would he revert to the commercial approach that often prioritized safety? The thought of unveiling her most vulnerable self set her heartbeat racing. In that fraught moment of self-exploration, the question clawed at her. Could she trust David to see the depth of her artistic truth amidst his corporate perspective? Feeling the weight of her revelations, she took a deep breath. Focusing on one truth, her art was no longer just a reflection of her past, but a guide toward her future. That evening, she amplified her efforts, diving into additional pieces bathed in anxiety and hope. A compulsion to push her limits, to delve into the unpolished parts of herself, took hold. She could harness this energy for her presentation. This was more than a collaboration, it was a fusion of identities, an exploration of the intricate balance between art and ambition. As she developed her final concepts, the culmination of her journey lay just out of reach. When would she summon the courage to take the leap of faith? Knowing the presentation would be pivotal, a crossroads where authenticity could either empower or dismantle their collaboration, Claire pondered her next steps. Would she find the audacity to share her true artistic self, or retreat into safer shadows as the moment approached? The nervous excitement bubbled within her, urging her onward, yet a subtle dread intertwined with her anticipation. Claire knew the meeting with David would be more than a presentation. It could redefine her trajectory in both art and life. Would she emerge transformed or face the crushing weight of hesitation? A moment loomed ahead, an uncertainty intertwined with hope, binding her future to the canvas she was yet to reveal. Would the truths she uncovered breathe life into their shared vision, or would her greatest fear come to fruition standing alone in vulnerability, while still hidden within the canvas she feared to unveil? At dawn, a soft light spilled through the studio window, illuminating the tangle of supplies strewn across the floor. Claire found herself staring at her most recent canvas, a raw depiction of her battles with self-doubt, splashes of vibrant color overwhelmed by dark, chaotic strokes. It was a visual representation of her journey, every brushstroke a testament to her struggle and growth. But would David see it that way? Would he understand the agonizing beauty she intended to convey, or dismiss it as too volatile for their ambitious project? These questions followed her throughout the morning, sticking to her like paint to a brush. As she prepared for the presentation, Claire felt an urgency rising within her, a relentless drive to express the truth of her experience. She gathered her sketches, noting each piece reflected a fragment of her duality. Vulnerability and ambition, chaos and clarity. This was not just work. This was her identity as an artist, scratched, flawed, yet entirely authentic. Every minute spent arranging the canvases toward what she hoped would be a cohesive display was laced with tension. She felt exposed yet oddly invigorated by the prospect of sharing her truth. In her mind, the meeting wasn't just about showcasing her art. It was a chance to challenge David's corporate tendencies. This wasn't about fitting neatly into a box. It was about breaking that box open. Ethan burst through the door, his typically buoyant demeanor a stark contrast to Claire's brooding concentration. "You ready for this?" he asked, practically bouncing on his heels. Ready as I'll ever be, she replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, she was teetering on the edge of doubt. How could she convey the gravity of her journey without succumbing to fear? As time slipped away, Claire completed her final preparations. The canvases now leaned against the wall, each one a stepping stone leading her to the presentation. The notion that David could reshape her work with a dismissive word filled her with trepidation. If he leaned toward a polished, commercial interpretation, would she lose the opportunity to express the raw truths of her identity? When the time finally came, Claire and Ethan set out to the meeting. Clutching her materials tightly, she tried to quell the nerves threatening to boil over. With each step, she envisioned the moment they would unveil her creations. Would David engage with her pieces, or would he inadvertently belittle the very essence she had poured into her work? As they reached the conference room, Claire's heart raced. The clean, sterile environment felt at odds with the chaotic energy she embodied. The stark walls and sleek furniture stood as a reminder of the corporate world that often stifled creativity. It was here that she had to make her stand against conformity, embracing her authenticity as an artist. David entered with a confident stride, his eyes scanning the room before landing on her. With an encouraging smile, he gestured for her to begin. Claire's hands trembled slightly, but she took a deep breath, centering herself. This was her moment. As she stepped forward, she could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears. I want to show you more than just art today, she began, her voice steadying. I want to reveal the layers of vulnerability and strength that shape my creative process. With that, she unveiled the first canvas, pouring her heart into the explanation, detailing the emotions connected to each stroke. As she spoke, Claire felt a weight lifting, her passion harmonized with her purpose, revealing a deeper connection between the artist and the observer. She watched David's expression shift from skepticism to intrigue. There was a flicker of understanding in his eyes, igniting hope within her. Yet, as she continued, the question lingered. Would he fully embrace what she was sharing? Or would he slide back into a zone of commerce, where artistic integrity was secondary? Desperately, she pushed through to the final piece, a bold, audacious reflection of her existence. Even if he resisted, Claire would stand by the depth of her work. Just when she thought she could anticipate his response, David's face shifted again. This is powerful, Claire, he said slowly, drawing out the words. But we have to consider the audience. The tension in the room twisted abruptly, pulling at her. Would his next words encourage her spirit or shatter her ambitions? As she faced this pivotal moment, Claire steeled herself, prepared to fight for her artistic truth. The future of her journey hung in the balance, crystallizing into the next tick of a clock as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting. As Claire stood before David, the air thick with unspoken challenges, a subtle fierce determination ignited within her. She had poured herself into her art, into every vibrant brushstroke that conveyed her journey of vulnerability and triumph. Everything hung on this moment, and she was unwilling to let her truth be sacrificed for mere commercial gain. This isn't just art, David. It's about connection, Claire urged, her voice steady yet passionate. It reflects the struggles we all face. The doubt, the fear of failure. You saw the beauty in Ethan's innocence, didn't you? That same rawness should be at the core of what we create together. She stepped closer, a sense of urgency propelling her forward. We can evoke authentic emotions. Art should speak to the struggle and the resilience that follows. David's expression softened, caught in the oscillation between the corporate expectations that often shackled him and the fiery potential Claire offered. The flicker of doubt in his eyes, however, sent a shiver of apprehension coursing through her. He could choose to prioritize the safety of familiarity or embrace the chaos of passion. I understand your vision, Claire, but we run a risk here, David started, a defensive tone creeping into his voice. We have to embrace that risk, she interrupted, her heart racing. Our audience craves authenticity. They don't want another polished product that feels like it lacks soul. The fervor within her surged as she continued to speak, echoing not just her own hopes, but but those of every aspiring artist who searched for acknowledgement. Let us pull them into the narrative we're crafting together. Let us show them it isn't just about aesthetics. It's about sharing a story that matters. Time seemed to stretch, each beat drawing the energy taut between them. Finally, David's gaze deepened, as if he was shifting gears in his mind. You're right, he conceded slowly, words dripping with newfound understanding. Maybe we've been approaching this the wrong way. There's strength in vulnerability. It does connect people. The realization lit up Claire's heart, daunting yet exhilarating. They stood at the intersection of ambition and creativity, ready to embrace the unknown as partners rather than competitors. Let us merge our visions into something that can transform us both, something meaningful. David nodded, the walls around him gradually dissipating as he opened up to her proposal. I can arrange for an exhibition that highlights not only the art but the stories behind them. I can see how we could engage with our audience on a deeper level. It becomes an experience, not just an event. We'll showcase the journey rather than simply the product. Claire felt the swell of satisfaction lapping over her as they delved into the logistics, each suggestion building upon the other like a thrilling crescendo. Bright moments of inspiration filled the room with energy, tangential thoughts flourishing within the collaborative spirit they forged. Together, they discussed themes, personal narratives, interactive components that could evoke emotional responses. With each detail, a sense of recognition blossomed within her. This was the partnership she had envisioned. Navigating this fresh landscape felt like stepping onto solid ground. She had fought for her voice, and in that moment, she could feel faith growing, the conviction that they were both capable of significant shifts not just in their careers but in their very identities as artists and individuals. Here was tangible proof of growth, an achievement blossoming from the seeds of uncertainty she once feared would consume her. Weeks passed as their collaboration flourished, transforming into a fully fledged exhibition, each piece bursting with layers of meaning, each story resonating with countless voices. The day of the unveiling felt monumental, but panic coursed back through her veins as Claire prepared. What if their audience rejected the raw, unfiltered truths they had so boldly embraced? Emerging from the wings backstage, she glimpsed the gallery filled with community members, a sea of curious faces. As she stepped onto the stage, her heart galloped erratically, the adrenaline igniting every sense. But then, her gaze fell upon a familiar figure. There was Ethan, his wide eyes sparkling with pride. In that instant, her doubts melted away. With clarity tethered to purpose, Claire spoke about their journey, the vulnerability she had reconciled with David, and the stories each canvas held. Every emotion flowed into her words, channeled through Ethan's innocent admiration, and filled the room with an affable warmth. The audience was captivated, wholly engaged in the resonance of authenticity. When the exhibition concluded, applause echoed against the walls. Yet it was the sight of David standing beside her, his expression reflecting pride and gratitude, that settled the whirlwind inside her. The realization washed over her. They had navigated the precarious waters of their creativity, together clashing fears transformed into shared strength. This collaboration was an achievement rooted in personal growth, allowing both of them to emerge not merely as artist and corporate figure, but as kindred spirits who had finally embraced their vulnerabilities. In the aftermath, as they packed up the pieces, David turned to her. You did exactly what we set out to do, his voice thick with emotion. You transformed not just our artistic vision but our connection with each other. You opened my eyes to what real art means. Claire's heart swelled with pride. This journey had forged her into an artist who held power in her vulnerability, a lesson she wished to impart to every aspiring creator and, certainly, to Ethan. They had each conquered their battles, establishing their places within not just the art world but within their own lives. With contentment filling her, she whispered to herself the promise she now understood. No matter what uncertainty lay ahead, she would continue to embrace the beautiful, messy grit of her creativity and connection, the heartbeat that would propel her forward, confident in her identity as a mother, an artist, and a partner in the dreams that awaited. It was a moment of triumph, not just collectively but primarily for her individual growth, a testament to overcoming fears, embracing authenticity, and fearlessly reclaiming her own aspirations. Claire had achieved not just professional accolades. She reignited her sense of self, standing proud in her newfound solid confidence and recognized competence. Join Claire on her journey, and if you resonate with her story, you need to subscribe now. Hit that button immediately, and don't miss the next exclusive emotional narratives. Leave a like now to nurture the algorithm and spread these powerful stories. And comment below with your reactions or theories on Claire's incredible transformation. You have to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how dreams can evolve into reality. Don't wait even one more second to show your support for these inspiring stories. Your engagement makes a difference. Be a part of the transformation journey.